knockoff. I'm Mark. Thank you for joining us, everyone. I'm just going to make sure that everything is okay from up the back because we are live streaming this, so it is on YouTube. Come on in, guys. Chris, thumbs up. We're good. Alrighty. So this is another Oz DeFi Association event. I thank you all for coming down. Before we begin, we need to welcome everyone to the land on which we are gathered. This is the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. We pay our respects to their elders past, present, and emerging as well. If this is your first time here, could I get a show of hands who's not been to one of these events before? Just as Chris turns the lights off, that is perfect timing. So to me, everyone has been here before. No, I'm just joking. Welcome all the first timers here. We do a mix of bit of education, a little bit of entertainment. If you don't find it entertaining enough, leave us a 1-star review. So I'm joking. Don't do that. 5 stars all the way. We have a bunch of different talks that we've been doing every month over here at Stone and Chalk. So the place that we're at now, this is a big incubation space in Sydney, in Melbourne, and they've also got a place in Adelaide. So we really thank them for providing us this space. Otherwise, we would all be just gathered around a table at a pub somewhere. So it's really nice to have partners that help us out. We've got some interesting talks today, which we'll click through to. So we've got Hedera. There is a project that we want to make mention of because they'll be speaking at a future event called Shping. That is the name. And we'll talk about a bit of AI and blockchain and how that comes together. And there'll be time for audience questions as well. So Rob, wherever you're at, right there, we will have some audience questions. So we'll go through some updates to begin with first. If we can get to the next slide and just get your phones ready. So what's on the QR code there is a whole bunch of well, it's a link tree. We've got a newsletter that we put out each week on Monday on LinkedIn and on Substack. So if you sign up for that, you'll get updates of what's going on in the community here in Australia, as well as a bit of global stuff. So there'll be videos, there's podcasts, etc. The other thing is that apart from the newsletter, the links showcase there's a Discord, there's the website, there's the Luma calendar. So Luma is a place where you probably signed up for this, or you might have found it off Meetup as well. We were doing Meetup, but to have one cohesive calendar, we've moved to Luma, as most Web3 projects seem to be there. Let's go to the next slide, please. All right, let's go to the next one. That's a boring slide. Boring slide as well. Updates. All right, so the last time we were here was in June. So very familiar kind of setting, different people though. So we had Cloud Tech, we had Charlie from Block Earner. They're one of our main sponsors. So really great to have these different projects from the community that are helping a community event like this. Let's go to the next one. We also had a lot of pizzas. So there's a familiar theme here. If you see people walking around with Domino's pizzas or Domino's pizzas at an event, it's probably a Web3 event or AI, you never know. And some other great speakers as well. Tim, who's in the audience here, was speaking about a big conference that's coming up or maybe has passed. And then a wine token NFT. And then we were learning about the history of crypto from a group that lawyers at KWM who've been in the space for a little while. So that's the top left picture there. Let's go to the next one. And we're going around the country. So in Brisbane, we had an event. This was the June one. They did have something in July, which was at another place called the Precinct. So when you do travel, we do have events in other cities. So Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, and in Sydney. So we'll go to the next one. That was at Hopwood Gannon. Perth just recently ran something on Monday. So they had some great presenters there. You can see some of the stuff online. If you follow us on Twitter, it's AUSDEFI, Oz DeFi. And you can see some of the stuff that was there. So that's at a place called Space Cube, which is our sponsor down there. So really great, interesting talks and Q&A from the audience. So some great projects going on over in Perth if you are ever traveling. Let's get to the next one. And Melbourne, the last time I was there, there's a place called Greythorn, and they are an asset manager, but they also host events as well. So half of their office is a space like this where they can fit about like 80 people. So it's really nice. And they're really keen on like running events. If you look them up, type in Greythorn, you'll probably see some crypto events that they've done, whether it's Solana, whether it's the DeFi events that we do, and plenty more. We've also got like other venues that we do stuff with down in Melbourne. One of our main sponsors is Cloud Tech, And they've got a really great NFT gallery that you'll see in a little bit. And there's another group called Upside. And on the top right, get my directions correct, is Upside doing their talk. They've got a 5-story venue out in Cremorne, so just a little bit outside the city, where there's co-working space. There's different companies and projects that work in the space. So it's a bit of a crypto factory, a literal crypto factory, which is great. Next slide, please. Who here is familiar or has heard of Real Vision? The Real Vision community. Yep. Okay, a few of you. The founder, Raoul Pal. You don't see how tall he is on screen, but he is tall, as you can see. I'm 6 foot. Lies. But so yeah, he's clearly 7 feet tall. No, but Raoul Pal is for me, he was one of the people that gave me that aha moment, like why Bitcoin, why blockchain, why crypto is important for the future of finance. So it was really great to have him travel down. He was part of a group that's invested in something called DVIN, Club DVIN. So D for decentralized, VIN for wine, so decentralized wine. And they gave a great talk. Australians, we love a good drink, right? As you can tell from the stuff outside and whatnot. But it's about getting access to high-end wine. And really interesting stuff there is that with blockchain technology, when you buy something, normally you can just see the sale. You see the purchase information. With wine, because it's not consumed straight away necessarily, especially the high-end stuff, you don't get the consumption patterns. But with RFID kind of data that's recorded on chain as soon as you open up a bottle, they've got that consumption data. So there's just really clever stuff going on in the blockchain space, and Club DVIN is part of that. So we're very lucky to run an event with them. Next slide, please, Rosa. Blockchain Week. Who here has heard of Blockchain Australia? Okay, a few of you. And who here has heard that they changed their name to Digital Economy Council of Australia? A few as well. Okay, so what's happening there is that as blockchain becomes more mainstream and it's seen as not just this niche technology, but an important part as people are building on top of it, we're seeing some really interesting things happening in that space. And the change of name for Blockchain Australia to Digital Economy Council is just all about that mainstreaming. So it's not just blockchain anymore. There's other technologies that are part of it. AI is even part of all of this. So very cool and interesting stuff there. They've got every year, they call it Blockchain Week. I don't know what they're going to call it, Rob, going forward. Maybe Digital Economy Week. Maybe there's a, Bodie McBoatface kind of voting system that they'll have to choose a new name, but we'll see. So that was an important event that was last month. Next slide, please. Cloud Tech. We do a podcast. So we usually do it down at another venue, which you'll see on the next slide here. But this podcast was with Cloud Tech at their offices. They've got this really cool space. We ran a meetup at last month. Not last month, the month before, but we'll do some semi-regular stuff there. One of the rooms that they've got, apart from having offices, is just a really cool NFT gallery. And they've got a cool, we don't show it here, but an immersive studio where you can see all these, like imagine you're in a room with an ocean. And if you ever saw The Mandalorian, that wasn't a green screen. They actually had a literal curved screen to make it look like you were out in the desert. So they don't necessarily do desert stuff there, but they've got a really cool space. We're very lucky to have done some events there. The podcast is on our YouTube. So Oz DeFi Association on YouTube, AUS DeFi Association. And it's from that QR code. So you'll see that in a little bit. We'll get to the next one, please. There's another podcast that I get to do, which talks about blockchain and AI. QR code for that one too. Chris up the back, who doesn't often get shown, but is sometimes on screen. You can see his beautiful face here. This is a conversation that we do because both Chris and I are companies. So even though we run this association, I run something called NotCentralised, which does blockchain and AI work. Chris works for Digital Village and does a lot of his own stuff as well. And we both come together to chat about the latest and greatest in blockchain and AI. So yeah, have a look at that. If you've got something that you're building, you want us to mention it, give us a shout. I do take tokens. Thank you. So let's go to the next one. I did a talk. Who here buys ETFs or knows of ETFs? A few of you. Okay. Oh, okay. More. So GlobalX is one of the providers. It used to be called ETF Securities, was bought out by an international group, and now it's called GlobalX. They've got some crypto ETFs, so they asked me to come do a talk about, to retail investors that aren't familiar with blockchain, why should you invest in blockchain? And we were talking about the projects that are being worked on in this space. So really interesting talk from one of those providers that is available on demand, so you can watch it after. And if you have a listen and you want to talk about it more, just feel free to reach out to us. So QR code there. Next one. This is a really interesting one. Okay. This is a bit of a coup. So these are international speakers, so they don't often come to Australia. But Audrey Tang and Glenn Whale, what it is that Audrey is the former digital minister for Taiwan and is the first non-binary minister for Taiwan. So a really important person over there. And they are speaking with Glenn here on stage. And Glenn is the founder of Radical Exchange. He was a pioneer of something called quadratic voting. Quadratic voting is very important in governance and DAOs and decision making. He did work on quadratic funding, which is a paper he put forth recently with Vitalik. And Vitalik is founder of Ethereum, as many of you may know. So well connected, very smart person. Audrey and Glenn have created something called Plurality. It's all about democracy, the intersection of blockchain, AI, digital innovation, and whatnot. So they'll be talking before they go to Canberra to meet with ministers in Parliament. They'll be speaking with us here on the 13th. So if you're interested in how does blockchain, how does AI, how does this technology help shape the way that we do voting going forward, we'll be talking about that. So QR code there, okay? And, if you come to this meetup, when you look at the calendar, you'll be able to see all that stuff. Let's go to the next slide, and we're getting very soon to the next bits. And just another little kind of like shout out, like to understand what's going on in that space. What is Plurality? We loaded with an AI tool that we built using the other hat that we wear, and asked questions about what's going on in that space. So it's about the what all of that kind of stuff is. What is Plurality? What were the talks that the guys had done? So their talks are available on YouTube. And we can load that up and check the transcripts and see what it was, what's in there. So they talk about Taiwan's democratic model, governance and technology, community and social cohesion, and much more. Let's go to the next one. And I'm getting close to you, Rob, so get ready. So another thing that we can do is normally when you use AI tools that you just might have a lot of back and forth and not really get a rounded response. But through something that we built, we've been able to create a way that if you give it like it's just a plain, simple kind of prompt, we can break it down and actually look at it from different angles. And in doing so, if you just ask a question about like what is going on in that space, like what is Plurality about, we can actually, it's helped us come up with what questions we will be asking these amazing people when they are on stage here. So we'll be talking to Glenn about things like multi-sectoral collaboration. I need to probably Google that or ChatGPT that or even Scikit to figure that out. Web3 and capitalism is a thing. Quadratic funding and public goods. So we'll be talking to him about what quadratic funding is and can it be applied within corporations as well as nation states. So really, really interesting stuff. These are big brain conversations. Luckily, we will record it. So if it doesn't make sense on the night, just hit us up and we'll explain it with Psych. So we'll go to the next one. Presentation time. All right, so first on stage, we've got Rob Allen. Rob was at Hedera, is now at Australian Payments Plus, is that right? But still a Hedera champion. Hands up before Rob comes up here. Who's heard of Hedera? A good few of you. Okay, Rob, you've got some more people to win over, but I'll hand over to you. You know the drill. When you need the next slide, just shout out next and we'll change over.
Okay, Rob. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. That was a lot of hands. Thank you, Mark. I've come in this evening just to do a bit of a Hedera update, but I'm happy to go through some background on Hedera. So who wants to know about Hedera and who wants just use cases and cool stuff? Who wants to know about Hedera? Okay, I'll do a bit of both then. Who knows more about Hedera than just knowing about it? Who holds HBAR or has a wallet? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right, keep your hands up because my glamorous assistant in the back has got some merch that is going to kind of pass around. Anyone who wants a T-shirt, also put your hand up because we don't take favorites here. Hedera. For those of you who do know and those of you who don't, Hedera is a layer one distributed ledger technology. It's not a blockchain, but it's still a DLT. And the distributed ledger technology aspects enable us to have this kind of distributed network that is secured through consensus, which is the kind of the basis of any DLT or blockchain. The difference with Hedera is that it has this consensus protocol called Hashgraph, which is on the t-shirt, which confusingly is also the new name for Swirlds Labs on the left, on the right there, because Hedera Hashgraph was the original name. When you hear the name Hedera, it could mean many things. I just want to clear this up to start with. What's unique about Hedera is we have this governing council, which I'll go into a little in a minute. But we also have a couple of foundations, the HBAR Foundation and the Hashgraph Association, which are grant-giving organizations, also venture studios and accelerators to kind of help the ecosystem grow. And Swirlds Labs is like our consensus, you know, it's our core engineering labs. And we engage with them to continue the build out of the network. Even though we're open source, and we're an open source, leaderless public network, most of the engineering work, as with most layer ones, is done by the core engineering team. So that's the structure. We've also obviously got an ecosystem of other players that are contributing to the network as a whole. Next slide, please. Chris, next one. Thank you. So what is Hedera? Hedera, like I said, is this distributed ledger technology. So the main net, the consensus net at the bottom is, for those of you who are au fait with blockchains, is similar, right? It's a network of nodes, all of which are secured by this Hashgraph protocol. It's proof of stake, but because the data structure is not a chain of blocks, it's a hash graph, it's super, super efficient and very, very scalable and very, very cheap to run. It's also, as you'll see in a second, very low in terms of its impact and high on sustainability scale. What it also has is an API layer. So from a developer perspective, it's very easy to interact with Hedera because we have these three main services. The consensus service, which is like an online notary. Any data that you throw at it will be logged on the mainnet, and a proof of that activity, that transaction, is returned to the user. So that's immutably stamped, and you can use that in a court of law or whatever to independently verify that fact, that data point. On the right-hand side, token service. So tokens are the lifeblood, the core, the sort of primitives of distributed ledgers. We have a native token service. So we operate at up to 10,000 transactions a second, super low cost, sub-cent, usually down around the 10th and 100th% per transaction level. And our token service runs like that, as opposed to a smart contract-based token service, which most of the other blockchains, if not all of them, have. But we also have a smart contract service. So we've got EVM compliance stack. So any smart contract that's written in Solidity will also run on Hedera as well, and get the benefits of that scale and super low cost and very sustainable operation. Next slide, please. So I'm whizzing through this very quickly, but I'm assured by Mark that I have Q&A at the end. So hopefully we'll be able to cover off any things that I skipped through or avoid. Like I said earlier, the unique aspect of Hedera is that it was designed to be enterprise grade, not enterprise only, but enterprise grade. So it has the qualities that enterprise seek in any platform, let alone distributed platforms. And one of the things that the founders first implemented was drawing inspiration from Visa, which is a scheme-based approach with a governing council of some of the world's biggest organizations. We also have something similar. So our first stage node operators are the likes of these businesses, and it's a bit faint, but you can see on there Google and EDF and Mondelez, one of the world's biggest, and they do Oreos and Ritz and Toblerone, right? So UCL, University College London, we've got Aberdeen, one of the world's biggest fund managers, BitGo, Ubisoft in the gaming space. So the purpose of the governing council really is to truly decentralize trust. You wouldn't expect these organizations to collude against the network, which is the purpose of decentralization and decentralized trust. We, and Australian Payments Plus, who I represent, are also on the governing council. So the entire Australian payments industry actually is part of this network. We host a node. We participate in the committees and workshops about the future of Web3 and this network in particular. So it's a big deal to be in the room with Google and Standard Bank and Avery Dennison and Ubisoft, all kind of discussing what the use cases look like and and sharing notes. And that's the purpose of the governing council, in addition to governing the network. Next slide, please. I'll skip over this because I want to get to use cases, but I will dwell slightly. Let's go back. Shouldn't have said that. That was a kind of trigger, wasn't it? So just as an aid memoir for how Hedera is differentiated from other DLTs. Performance, like I said, 10,000 transactions a second, and that's throttled. We've tested up to 100,000 transactions a second. If you compare that with Ethereum, for example, around 15, it's super, super fast. And these are real world transactions. These aren't just like wash trades or consensus transactions in the background. These are real world utility. It's in particular, at the moment, we're doing about 2,500 transactions a second on a big supply chain use case that's being driven by Avery Dennison that is logging product in its Atma product cloud application. 2,500 transactions a second is pretty big. We've just surpassed 62 billion transactions on our mainnet in the last week, I think. So, which is more than every transaction on every blockchain ever, just on Hedera. Pretty good. Security-wise, we have this kind of gold standard level of distributed security called asynchronous Byzantine fault tolerance. I can talk a little bit more about that if anyone's interested. Stability, governance I've talked about, and sustainability is cool as well. And the next slide, Chris, will go into a bit more of that. So by dint of the fact that we have this super efficient hash graph algorithm and data structure, which isn't dependent on kind of throttling the network in order to add blocks, adding blocks to blockchains and proof of stake is actually part of the security mechanism. We don't have that constraint. So University College London has done 2 peer-reviewed reports now on sustainability, which is a big deal, actually. I'll come on to that in a second. And as you can see, Hedera is kind of orders of magnitude less impactful in terms of energy consumption. In fact, our network at the moment consumes less than a single domestic household, and even scales to many times larger than we currently are, would still only be a small village as opposed to a small country. Next slide, please. I won't go into this, but Masari do a quarterly report. There's plenty of data. I think the key takeaways are between this column and this one. So for the last year, even in a crypto winter, we're kind of making real, great strides in terms of adoption, accounts, transactions per second, and all the metrics that they tend to look at. Next slide, please. So into the cool stuff. I'm just going to whiz through a couple of, themes, but and then dwell on sustainability, I think. May have heard real-world asset tokenization is kind of the big theme at the moment. Being an enterprise-focused distributed ledger, real-world asset tokenization has always been in our sights. In fact, Aberdeen, the UK's biggest fund manager with the most assets under management, joined the governing council specifically for this reason. They invested in this company, Archax. which now tokenizes money market funds, both for Aberdeen and more recently BlackRock. And the intention there really is to create new forms of currency that are tokenized money market funds that are yield bearing, which is a really cool idea. And you know, watch this space on that, because that's a really cool use case. Next slide. From the sublime to the ridiculous, karate combat. If anyone was following Bitcoin conference in Nashville last week, or Consensus in May, karate combat's actually getting you know, lots and lots of screen time. It's a real world MMA style sport, but it's built on Hedera. So Hedera, they have this amazing use case where the fighters are part of the DAO and the community is part of that DAO as well. And the karate token is the thing which, as with all Web3, properly designed Web3 applications, kind of fuels that interaction between consumers and providers, in this case, the fighters and the fans. And there's a gaming platform, Up Only Gaming, where you can bet on your fighters as well. And it's getting a lot of primetime coverage. In fact, last week you had RFK, so you had RFK Jr. there, the presidential candidate. You had the Hawk Tour girl there. I said it was sublime to the ridiculous. And and you had a lot of coverage. What's happening now, and the fact that they're following these big blockchain events around, is that the influencers like to get in the ring with each other. So you usually get one or two fights with some YouTube crypto influencers wanting to, you know, show off their flabby bellies. And it's really cool, right? And this is all built on Hedera. So, you know, I'm pretty proud of the way that that's going. Next slide, please. Now we're at the DeFi, Australian DeFi Alliance, so I needed to talk about DeFi. For the longest time, Hedera was kind of a bit snooty about DeFi. I would say we kind of came to the party late in the last cycle, but we've caught up pretty fast. We've got some great product now. You know, based on the fastest, cheapest, you know, most stable distributed ledger, you get a really good user experience. So Sources Swap is our kind of Uniswap equivalent. In fact, it's a straight port from Uniswap. Like I said, we have an EVM where you can just run your Solidity on it. That's top left. Hashpack is our probably #1 retail wallet. Excellent user experience. So I recommend anyone who wants some HBAR in their portfolio to get hold of that. Bottom left, Bonzo. Bonzo's just been released. It's one of 2 lending protocols which we've just released that are actually making waves within the Hedera community and the wider space as well. So that and H-Liquidity, which is a liquidity kind of port based on the Swiss franc as a stable coin. So that's a pretty cool lending protocol. And bottom right, Hashport. Hashport's our main bridge, so you can bridge in and out of Hedera to EVMs and Solana and all sorts of others. So we're kind of in the game as well. We're not just enterprise and supply chain use cases and fund management. We've got the fun and the froth there as well now, which is great. I haven't got a slide on the NFT space, but you know, that's pretty cool. We've got some great meme coins, so if that's your thing, Hedera is great as well. Next slide. One of the things I wanted to, how long do I have, Mark? 5? You're so wrapped in what I'm saying, you kind of lost track of time. I'll take 5 on sustainability. Like I said earlier, because we have this kind of unique position in terms of the platform being so low in terms of its energy consumption, and we actually offset, we use carbon offsets to offset the difference, or more than offset the difference. So we're kind of demonstrably carbon negative as a platform. And because that's very much aligned with many of the core team and the founders' principles, we've really focused in on sustainability use cases. In fact, our foundation has 4 main kind of funds, 4 main pillars, and one of those is a sustainable impact fund. We announced, in fact, I helped set it up we announced a $100 million fund a couple of years ago to invest only in sustainable impact projects. Part of this was the recognition that point solutions, if anyone knows about carbon markets or any of the kind of nature-based asset markets, they're broken. They were designed by bankers 30 years ago and carry all of the problems that would suggest. They're opaque. There's lots of middlemen gouging value. It's very difficult to get a global price. The projects themselves only get a fraction of the value, which doesn't incentivize the more projects to come online, as in reforestation or mangrove renewal or carbon sequestration. So all of these projects aren't getting the finance they need to grow, and we need a step change to get to net zero. So what we did was we created an ecosystem of change. We've open sourced everything. It's called Guardian. And at its heart is this server, which takes data, lots and lots of data, because we can scale so well, and tokenizes that data. So imagine a carbon credit, which carries all of its provenance, all of its the data that is required to be captured in order to issue a carbon credit, and tokenize that. So as opposed to many of the other projects in this space, which quite nobly take data and then tokenize it, like you take an Australian carbon credit unit, an ACU, and tokenize that on a blockchain. That's great. You get a token, which is the property right, and you can transfer it, and it's kind of traceable. That requires you to trust the source of that data, which is the ACU, which in itself doesn't carry any trust in terms of the upstream data collection. It's opaque. What the Guardian system does is it works with project developers to ensure that you get RFID or moisture sensors or data collectors in what they call DMRV, so digital measurement, reporting and verification methods. And all of that data, timestamped on the Hedera consensus service, is all captured and then tokenized itself. So anyone that carries that token, that carbon credit token or carbon emission token or biodiversity token, can independently verify the data, the source of that, the origin of that token, which in itself helps with the value of the token, because you can then now not distrust the system, you can trust it because you can verify it. Core principle of Web3. Once you've got that, you can apply it to secondary markets. We've got an AI-based, again, open source marketplace called Tolam. Tolam Earth does automated market making based on these standard tokens. And then the whole ecosystem has grown with a third pillar, which is financing. So we do carbon forwards and everything else. So if you go on to the next slide, sorry, I should have gone to that. So we're bringing a lot of supply, which are over 300 now methodologies, into the carbon and biodiversity space, and solving for all of these problems using all of this open source technology. There's a load of content online. If you look for Envision and Guardian, then you'll find tutorials and introductions and all sorts of great stuff. And we have a website called dltearth.org, which is in which all that material is as well. So it's a passion area for me. If there's anything that you need to know, anything more you need to know about it, then please feel free to reach out. You can ask me about payments as well, if you're really interested. We're doing some cool things at AP Plus on Hedera as a governing council member around stable coins and with our members. So we'll be announcing more of that soon. And maybe if I haven't outstayed my welcome, Mark, I'll come back and talk about that next time.
Definitely. We could probably do one or two questions. Does anyone in the audience have a question? I've got one right next to me here. Not a plant at all.
Hi, Rob. Justin here. How you doing?
Hey, Justin.
As a developer or an entrepreneur, can you give me a guide as to how I can get involved in both a project and or a grant application to make a difference using the Hedera network?
That actually was a planted question. Not by me. Thank you for the question, Justin. So two parts. I mean, Australia seems to be punching above its weight in terms of Hedera projects. We've got quite a few startups now, as well as enterprise projects, either looking at or building on Hedera across a wide range of startups. So if you are a builder or if you're a developer and you like the technology, then I'm very happy to make introductions to some of these amazing startups that are doing that. My first slide referred to the Hashgraph Association and the HBAR Foundation. Those are two foundations that are, one's based out of Switzerland, Hashgraph Association, HBAR Foundation out of the US, that run, as you would expect, kind of grant programs. They have very similar application processes. The crypto winter hasn't been kind to any of the foundations, but given that the prices are so low. But I've been through the process. In fact, I set up a couple of processes, so I'm very happy to provide introductions or support if you're keen to do that. But they both have portals. Don't expect a quick response unless you kind of are a squeaky wheel or ask me to go and shout at them, because they get thousands of requests.
Time for one more question. Anyone? Oh, right here up the front. 1 second, sir. I need to do my cardio.
They both do amazing work. So I was a little bit tongue-in-cheek about the delays. It is by dint of the fact that they have lots and lots of demand. So the process works, but it just takes a little while if you're very keen to get grant funding.
Sorry, question. Two questions, actually, one topic. So if you still remember Hyperledger, dead already, can you prove to us you are better than Hyperledger? Second, I'm going to say your Hedera is not decentralized. Please, change my mind.
Please change my mind. Excellent.
No pressure.
No, it's okay. It's a normal question. So the Hyperledger thing, I didn't quite get the question, but we are part of the Hyperledger project, the Linux Hyperledger Foundation project. There is a plugin for the Hyperledger Fabric technology that can utilize the Hedera consensus service as a kind of source of truth or an anchor, if you like, into a public ledger which secures it, and it replaces the leader-led approach that Hyperledger uses. We are finding quite a few Hyperledger projects actually migrating onto Hedera. And I can go into details why that might be. In fact, Justin Levac has the scars of doing exactly that for his startup. So that's the Hyperledger thing. Are we decentralized? Okay. There's an excellent video from one of our founders, Dr. Lehman Baird, called The Path to Decentralization. The hypothesis here is that you need decentralization for trust, right? Blockchains, distributed ledger technologies are trust networks, and I would suggest that the number of nodes does not equate to trust in that network. If you have a layer 1 blockchain where most of the nodes are pooled or can be switched off based on a Discord message, which I think we probably all know what I'm talking about, that's not decentralized either. By design, this path to decentralization envisages, because we envisage a 100-year network, right? We'll be here for 100 years. So the 3 stages of decentralization, because we're proof of stake, right? Any proof of stake network needs to be very careful about the distribution of its tokens and doing that in tandem with the price of the token, because the token is the security mechanism for the network, right? Because it's proof of stake. if you distribute your tokens too quickly at too low a price, then a bad actor can accumulate a large proportion of those and therefore compromise the network. And once compromised, there's no coming back. So because we envisage a 100-year network, our first phase is with the governing council. Right? Governing council, actually, I would come back to you and say, is truly decentralized because you can trust. You may not think you can trust Google or IBM or Standard Bank, but if you throw Ubisoft and BitGo and Chainlink into there as well, would you expect them to collude against you as a user? I would say no. So you can trust the network because we are decentralized by sector, industry sector. We're decentralized by geography. The governing council members only serve a 3-year term, so over time they're refreshed as well. Plus, you wouldn't expect them to collude against the network because of brand and reputation. The second stage of decentralization, which we're about to enter, is community nodes. So at that point, we go from 39 permissioned, but hundreds of nodes to scale with the usage of the network and the price of the token and the distribution schedule for the token. Beyond that, fully decentralized, fully open source, and fully permissionless. But we may take 10 years to get there. But it's a controlled and measured way to actually build a network which we expect to be with us for many, many decades.
Thanks very much, Rob. All right, everybody. Thank you, Rob. Check out those stickers. Those are pretty cool stickers. I may or may not have 20 on my laptop at any one time. So there is a group that will present at a future event. We were going to try to get them to dial in, a bit of a mix-up on the technology side. But they're called Shping. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. I was going to try to get all of us to say it. Could we all? 1, 2, 3. Shping. Close enough. Gennady, if you are watching, hopefully we got that right. So there are a universal rewards app, as you can see. So token. That's really colorful there. Next. So going from, just single points of entry to to rewards to something where it connects to multiple, and go to the next part. And it's across so many different brands. So they're building up some really great connections from what I've seen. I think there's been a bit of press about them as well. So definitely worth checking that out. They've got their 4-stage process for this. But like I said, I'm going to do it injustice if I go through it. But we will have them either calling through at a future event like this, or we'll see them down in Melbourne. So if you do travel, like I said, Melbourne, Sydney, Perth, Brisbane, Shping. So next on stage, I'll get Arturo to, oh yeah, easy cash out, all the good stuff. Let's get Arturo up on stage here. I'll give you, well, you can choose a mic. You've got different colors there, pink, white, green. Alrighty, so Arturo is a man of many talents. He's like your favorite developer's favorite developer, so you don't really hear about him much, but he's a good guy. We're gonna talk about blockchain and AI. Hands up here who's using AI in their day-to-day or at work. ChatGPT, using it to write emails, using it to, I don't know, just look up random stuff. You might be using it as a bit of a search engine. If you do, make sure you are using Perplexity or you're actually getting ChatGPT to search on something, otherwise it hallucinates. But in any case, the interesting thing that we see is that blockchain helps that AI far more than you think. And the way that it does that is by securing things as part of that. So imagine that you have something that you have seen and you have an output, you've read it. You're a doctor, financial advisor, etc. You need to prove that you actually have read this, even though people know that it is AI that is being used because it's more efficient, etc. And we become more accepting of that. Digital signatures, aka digital attestations, or what we're calling micro-signatures, which are signed off with the zero-knowledge proof, is how we are doing that. If we can click on the next one, and I'll show you how we do it here and there's going to be different kinds of AI apps that are doing this, but because we've come from blockchain and we're building an AI, I think it's this is we're one of the first ones to kind of see this stuff here. So Arturo, do you want to just explain what's happening on screen there? I think so. Hang on.
Okay, so I'll just give a little bit more background, and I'll try to merge the conversation into DeFi, which is why we're all here. I think that most of you had actually used ChatGPT. How many of you have executed a transaction on a blockchain? Okay, so this room is a bit biased towards it being a blockchain-centric room, but I think that it was kind of equal. If you walk out to the real world, I think that the bias would be very, very different, right? So I want you to think about something, and it's that if we were to block or shut down every single blockchain in the world, there would be a few people that would be really, 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 really upset. If we shut down GPT, most of the world would be really annoyed. And I'm saying really, really upset because there are a lot of zealots in blockchain. Most people are actually using GPT, and they haven't gone to the point of full production yet, which is why I'm using the word annoyed. So now I jump back to why we're talking about this and the reason why we set up the DeFi Association. And it's really about understanding how to make blockchain useful, right? It's transferring tokens is not the only reason why blockchains are useful. Integrity in data is effectively what makes transference of tokens a possibility. So the reason why we care about blockchain is because of that integrity of data. Now, we've worked a lot on the transferring side as well. We worked together with Rob on the Hedera side to bring the construction pilot in the CBDC. We're working on real world asset tokenization of rent rolls now, which is a really exciting project. But at the same time, we also acknowledge that if we do care about blockchains being used across everything, which I truly believe there is a good potential for that, we need to look further than just the token transfer part and the tradability aspect, right? Which, bear in mind, is really important, because if we've had any ability to decentralize the blockchains we have, it's because people have been making money from that. So what we've been doing on the blockchain side has been really focusing on the zero knowledge proof, because it gives you obfuscation, right? The real world.
Can we get a show of hands who knows what a zero knowledge proof is or has heard of a ZKP? It's a good amount. Just to go ahead.
How many people think that they are only related to rollups? Okay, very good.
Clever crowd. No, it's good. So ZKPs, imagine you got your license in the real world right now. When I get carded because I look so young, lining up at a club like I do all the time. When I get carded, was that Chris laughing? No. When I get carded, they see all of my data, like they see my name, address, date of birth, etc. And they need to see some of that, but they don't need all of the information there. ZK proof is a way to prove things with a true or false answer cryptographically without actually moving data around. So imagine that you just get queried the question, I'm the bouncer, or Arturo's the bouncer, and he makes a query, I see it come up on my phone, and I can choose to selectively disclose that, okay, it's only certain things I want to show. Please.
No, that's the key word. It's selective disclosure. Now, within the Web3 space, we care a lot about sovereignty, about selective disclosure, about privacy and kind of ownership of your own data. But these things, at least for now, technologically, are not that easy to achieve, and therefore the user experiences in their purest form are actually quite shit. But on the other hand, if you think about the end customer being a business that has a tech team and has the ability to deal with the complexities of all of these features, then you actually have something that's really, really powerful.
Do you mean because, like, if you and I do a transaction, I can see all your history of everything that you've done on that wallet?
Yeah, I mean, just even setting up a MetaMask.
Everyone, if you've done a transaction with someone like Arturo, go check out what he's been spending his money on. Because you can right now, right?
Correct. So if we then tie all of that back to what's happening right here. What we've let me rephrase. What our customers have required when implementing AI solutions has been auditability and explainability of results. Okay. Part of the auditability also is that people need to be able to show that they have validated the outcome. And we can talk hours about how that happens. We won't do it now, we can do it afterwards. But the fact that somebody has validated the outcome and has attested to that validation is really important. If it's part of the process and it's also part of the psychology behind the people that are using the models, right? So when you click on that sign button, what happens is that we take the prompt that generated the outcome, and then we generate a ZK package that gets put on a blockchain. And the reason why we do that is because doing so enables an auditor to, when the shit hits the fan at some point, which it always does, you can go to this public ledger of events that is fully obfuscated, but still fully auditable by the people that need to audit it, right? So this is not something that only is necessary within, let's call it a public group, but within big organizations as well. Because, for example, within finance and banks, you have things called Chinese walls, right? You need to be able to segregate information between the different departments. But if these various departments are using GPT and you have one central IT department, that central IT department does not want to have multiple different auditable logs because it just becomes a shit show. Using a blockchain, public ledger, a private ledger, doesn't really matter in this case. But by using a blockchain where the central team can effectively keep a very private log of all of these different events, of the engagements with the models, then when compliance comes in and sees, well, something went wrong, can you actually prove what happened? Why does the outcome look the way it does? And what was the input data that was used?
And who signed off on it?
Yeah, exactly. And who signed off on it, right? So I think that is there.
Yeah, we go into a next part here, but just on that concept here, this is not something that is happening in AI right now, okay? And it's because we're still learning, we're still getting the hang of prompting, we're still getting the hang of when do you use generative AI and when do you get to trust it. So there's other work that's being done in that space to reduce the hallucinations on the one side, to have privacy in various ways. Like it might be a group that wants to have everything all in-house, or they want to use OpenAI instead of through directly OpenAI, they're doing it through Microsoft so that the data stays here in Australia. And so the micro-signatures part is the way that blockchain is being, one way that blockchain is being used to help the AI space on that security note. And when you take what's being shown on screen here, which is one application of, okay, here's an example of an output from an AI system that might have been talking to just normal GPT, or it might have been talking to one of your documents or multiple documents. The output that it's come out with, being able to have a person sign off on that was the first part that we got into. But then when you take it further and we see things happening in the AI space, and look, we are very happy to talk about AI. I do a lot. We do a lot. We used to run a group like this, twice the size, which is the Data Science Association. I think DeFi is enough. We've handed that off, and they still do events there. But we were seeing a lot of movement in that space, and because it's moving so rapidly, there is this need to be able to not just say, "Hey, we've got humans in the loop. Look at my log files. It's a text file." I can't trust that, right? By having something that is connected to blockchain and has that timestamp, it's important. And when we've seen others build AI agents, it gets to a very interesting concept. And we'll get to the next slide, please, Rosa. Or Chris. Oh, okay. We'll skip this one, actually. We'll go, we've spoken about this a little bit. So imagine a scenario, and I'll get Arturo to talk to the next part, where in this simple scenario, there is a document that is coming through your organization to review, to do some sort of AI workflow on it. We'll get to the next slide. Arturo.
Okay, so this is a pattern that we were both implementing in the ESG space and on the healthcare space. because AI or specifically language models are really, really good at validating information according to specific criteria. Now, we mentioned before that we use blockchain as a ledger of events, as a log. But we do another thing that is actually really, really interesting, which is using the programmability of a smart contract and effectively transforming this log into a privilege, into an access control mechanism, where the smart contract is the one that gives you access control if certain things have happened. Still, it's fully obfuscated on a public blockchain. So what happens is that as the document starts passing through this funnel, the first AI agent, which is, let's say it's a validator for specific elements in a term sheet. The second validator checks for certain types of financial risks and so forth. Each one of these prompts generates a positive or a negative output. Now, bear in mind, these prompts will have been tested and tested and tested and tested. So there is trust in the output of these prompts because we understand how they work. Now, as these prompts are executed, we create digital signatures of the prompt itself, the data that comes in, and the output data that is created, that then creates a ZK hash, and it's put into the blockchain.
Let's go to the next slide, please, Rosa, because Arturo's jumping ahead, as his brain always does, which is a good and bad thing.
There we go. So we see that each agent then creates a microsignature and puts that onto the blockchain. Now, what is not visible in this in these charts that I'll rather talk to is that as we have these checks and balances occurring, we can also have validation of the ZK proofs at the smart contract level, where you, for example, can ask the blockchain, has this document passed through all of the different checks? If it's a yes, then there will be an agent that checks if this has happened and can only give that document a green tick if the ZK proofs for each one of these agents is valid. And therefore, the rest of the system can only continue because it'll use the ledger as the access control system across the board. And this is really, really powerful because effectively what you get is this company-wide or ecosystem-wide access control mechanism that lives on a decentralized network if that's what you require. It is completely private or obfuscated, but it still contains all of the descriptions of the privileges that you need to model within your system. So in the future, if something happens and you want to know why was this person or this thing given access, then there is that full audit trail. And more importantly, if things go well, as they usually do, we're not talking about edge cases, obviously, the access control mechanism doesn't allow you to continue unless all of these different checks have actually occurred.
It's one of the really powerful things about blockchain. So have a think about it. If you've been around in this space for a couple of years, you would have seen the ups and downs of the ICO cycle or people getting into DAOs, the centralized autonomous organizations, people doing things like sweat equity, or with the ICOs being promised that you would actually get a certain percentage of allocation, and then the founders, when they receive the money, rugging you, or AKA running off with the money. Now, if only it was on the smart contract that as soon as this wallet gets the funds, it's going to fund your wallet. We had the tools, we just chose not to use it because of whatever reason. So that's not to say that blockchain is bad. It is that we weren't using it well enough. Having those checks and balances there and a rules-based system. We live in a world right now where we have rules and regulations. We have enforcement after the fact. Blockchain-driven regulation or blockchain-driven kind of rules would mean that there's policies, exactly. They would mean that if you're not allowed to sell, for example, a wholesale product, a professional security product to retail investors, right now in the real world, you get in trouble for it later. Or if you're not supposed to sell derivatives, you just get in trouble for it later. But there could be a future world where you're just limited because unless it's recorded on the smart contract and you're whitelisted, etc., you pass through these checks and balances. It creates a new kind of world for the better for most.
So here's an interesting use case that we will be starting to work on soon. It's for a foreign country that wants to.
But before you go into that, because I
Yeah.
think we've got a slide for this, and here's a really good example of what we should have done. Like I prepared these slides. I should have had Arturo, after he's read it, actually sign a ZK proof so I know that he's gone through it. He hasn't apparently, and that's okay. But we meant to do this, folks. This is proof positive. So we'll go to the next slide, which is the case when it doesn't work out. So as Arturo mentioned there, tick, tick. And look, you notice there that we've got robot checkers, because you can, when you've built these AI systems in a way that they are specifically checking something, you've got a bit of human involved there. An interesting kind of tidbit is that I reckon that there's going to be some processes that robots are just better at than humans. And what do I mean by that? Humans, we get tired, we get lazy, we might be angry, we're emotional, etc. There are things, the machine, if it's built in the right way, will not do that. And yes, you have to have the checks and balances in there. But there are things where we talk about human in the loop right now. We're really pushing for that. But I reckon there's going to be a future. Maybe this is a controversial take, but I reckon there'll be a future where having a human in the loop for certain things actually potentially degrades the quality of that process. So let's, that's a further thing, but just imagine a mix of humans and robots are doing stuff here, human checker at the end. This is an example where it goes wrong. To what Arturo is talking about, a system, we'll go to the next slide and you can continue, sir.
Okay, so the project that we're going to be embarking on is on the tokenization of university degrees. That's in principle nothing new. There's some really interesting patterns that emerge from doing something like this, especially when you're working in a place that has, let's call it, centralized ways of doing things. So you have a Ministry of Education, you have a Ministry of Labor, you have all of these different central entities that have pretty good control over what happens within a society and an economy. So the exercise in this case is that as you tokenize the university degrees, then we need to start ideating over what happens next. Well, a few things that can happen next are that the Ministry of Labor, for example, is able to offer an open board for employers to post their openings. They can also say at the smart contract level what type of degrees or what type of features they want people to have in order for them to be able to apply. So again, all of these are proofs that can be done on the university degrees that are tokenized, and then the smart contract checks that there's a proof that this information is actually valid. Now, that's really good because it gives a lot of transparency over the employment process, or much more transparency than there current is. You can see how many openings there are. You can see how many people have tried. If you have the qualifications, you will be able to apply. If you don't, then you're just not able to because smart contract doesn't allow you to. But where the next step comes in is that we're talking here about very cold facts, right? Either you have a specific grade on a course or you don't. But what happens about with the personal features? Effectively, what usually gets written in a cover letter, which, by the way, usually never get read. But that's effectively where companies are able to have very well tested prompts to actually analyze the cover letters, meaning that they actually do get read, and you pass through a filter where the companies can better choose what they are after. Furthermore, that's at the company level. Because these are governmental entities, they will also be able to see how the job distribution or the resource allocation within this ecosystem works, where it's efficient, where it isn't efficient. And if you see openings or rather lack of resources within certain sectors of the economy, then you can effectively, using GPT type models, start to understand which skills can be, or which individuals can be potentially reskilled relatively quickly to fit that need. And if not, then you start importing labor, right?
So, because you're saying that basically, if we're all connected on this, public, private, whatever it is, it doesn't matter what the blockchain is. If there's selective disclosure with the proper kind of ZK proofs, then you can maintain your level of confidentiality. But in a situation like that, you've got this real-time gauge. Like right now we get government statistics monthly. Imagine more real-time, so that who needs to see that kind of stuff can see what is going on in an economy at that time. So really interesting stuff going on there. But going back to the AI side, why AI plays a really important part there is it's a really great matchmaker. If you've ever done something like, say it's fun, you're going on a trip and you just ask ChatGPT, hey, I'm going to Seoul in South Korea, plan me a trip. It's going to give you an okay average. It's going to give you the most average of responses in the bell curve. But if you tell it that I've got a family of 2, my wife likes this, my kids like that, I don't eat this kind of food, it's going to give you far more nuanced kind of response. So as a matchmaking kind of tool, it is really quite powerful. And with powerful data comes powerful responses, I think Uncle Ben said in Spider-Man. So I'm joking. But yeah.
Yeah, just on a final thought there, we have, I think that for the past year and a half, we've been trying to understand what the role of blockchain is within the economy. And usually we think about it in terms of payments or in terms of tokenizing assets. And effectively what we're doing is that we're translating existing workflows onto a blockchain. Now, it's a first step. We shouldn't stop judging it at that step, but we do. And that effectively just means that we lack imagination, but it's a fact. Now, with MPP as a really, really efficient payment network, it's really difficult to show that there is a need for something as efficient as blockchain, because payments actually happen quite quickly.
NPP is the Australia's payments network. It's quite advanced.
Now, with the use cases that we talk about here, which are effectively not driven by blockchain, they're driven by other technologies that are much more front-end facing, like language models. We start to see that we are able to create workflows that actually require much higher levels of efficiency when it comes to data integrity and transferability of assets. So I truly believe that if we care about getting blockchain to be the thing that many people in this room, I think, want it to be, we need to find other workflows that kind of drag it instead of thinking that blockchain is the one that is going to push forward to the future. And language models are definitely one of those use cases.
I definitely vote for Arturo. I don't know about you guys, but if anyone, like I see a future where if someone's talking about AI, you need to ask them, where does blockchain fit in with your strategy? So it's an important part. We can rant on this a little bit more, but we'll get to the next part. Thank you, Arturo.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to the next slide, Jamie. Yeah, we'll skip that one. Okay, just showcasing something here where if you ever want to, like, I mean, he spoke a lot about stuff there. We've got the transcription of this because it is recorded. The last 3 meetups from May, April, June, we asked the AI, well, after we loaded it in, what are some of the key points from those meetups? Because maybe you weren't able to attend them. It will run through, it's reading through a lot of documentation here, like 1.5 hours of talks. That's a lot of notes. So key themes being the networking and community building. We updated on recent activities. There were future events and platforms that we spoke about. Meetup 2 was about Web3 regulations in Hong Kong, as we had a visitor here. For that, we also spoke about some blockchain and AI integration, as we just mentioned there, and some educational programs that people had mentioned. So really interesting stuff that you can quickly glean through if you weren't able to catch like the whole session. We'll go to the next one. Another thing that we can do is see what potentially the key themes are if you're a builder in this space. So looking at those same months of transcripts, if you're new, you learn about censorship resistance, community collaboration, smart contracts, regulatory considerations, because here in Australia, we're looking at something like that at the end of the year. We're not operating in a vacuum. Regulation is coming here. So just wanted to show you this because we have something to announce, which is on the next slide. Ta-da. Okay, so City of Sydney. Has anyone heard of City of Sydney? I have. A few of you, yeah, thank you, Alex. So City of Sydney sponsored us last year, and they are one of our major sponsors. Without them, we would not be able to do the community stuff that we have done last year. We're going to get to continue that. what's ended up happening is that the way it works with City of Sydney, if anyone is running events and whatnot, they don't give you the same funding for the same thing. They help you get off the ground. They need to see you grow. So we said that, look, we've got new sponsors. Thank you for giving us the leg up. What we need now is we're going to take our meetups to the next stage, which is actually providing for people a way to interact with our meetups and see from the transcripts that we've got and from other reports and research that we'll load in to help businesses and individuals like yourselves learn about this space. What it has meant for us, as you know, I'm wearing my AI company hat on, Psych, which is there. It means that we can provide for anyone that signs up now a free month off, right? Free month of trying it out for free, so that you can see what these things are about. And if anyone does sign up here, I'll be able to see it and we can share with you the insights that we've got here. We're doing stuff with it was Blockchain Australia, now it's Digital Economy Council. The reports, the research. We've got, at the start of the year, there was the 2024 Crypto Outlook reports. Hopefully you're not allergic to Outlook reports, sir. We've got those reports, 20 of them from Nansen, from Gemini, from Coinbase, from Binance, etc., where you can get really cool insights from. So that's all available. Happy to talk after class on that. We'll get to the next slide. Before we go into some final kind of stuff, we do have a guest here from, I mentioned Real Vision before. Jamie, is Jamie here? Is Jamie still here? Jamie, come on down. Jamie Coots from Real Vision, come on down. Grab a mic. I don't know. You get one chance for the non-poison mic. Did he? Did he though? So just check that. See if your mic works.
Ooh, hello.
Okay, you're good.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mark. I appreciate it.
Please. Do you want to have it? Chris, is he? Where do you want Jamie? On that side? Yeah. Camera's already pointed to you.
Okay. All right. Great. Well, look, this is very impromptu. I wasn't expecting to be talking at all, so I will keep it very brief. And it's very kind for Mark to introduce me. I've been in Australia for 2 years after being away for a long period of time, and this is actually my first DeFi Australia meeting, so I should be doing a lot more of these, and I look forward to it. The new Jamie is working for Real Vision. Previously, I'd worked in TradFi. I have a sort of trading background, primarily in equities and equity derivatives. And for a couple of years whilst I was at Bloomberg, I sort of crossed over into digital assets. And that was an amazing experience because I was sort of trying to move the needle in a massive oil tanker out at sea that tends not to move very quickly when there's like new opportunities. But it did lead me to doing and creating a digital assets research product within Bloomberg Intelligence, which I'm very proud of. And now I'm working for Real Vision, which is a massive pivot for me, but certainly one that I'm enjoying. And I think there's an amazing opportunity to sort of bring what I would call institutional grade research to the masses. For people here who maybe are familiar with Real Vision, Raoul Pal, the founder, who was out here just a couple of months ago, or maybe only a couple of weeks ago, with an event and we did that tokenization of wine, which is a fascinating area, and a panel, which was, we had tons of people there. But the point being is that Raoul has brought more people into the digital assets, blockchain, crypto space, I think, than anyone else from a TradFi perspective. And I'm one of those people.
Same here. Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing. And it's, he developed a very strong macro thesis. And through that macro thesis and lens, he's been able to sort of lean into digital assets. And he asked me when I was working at Bloomberg Intelligence to come over to Real Vision and create product for his community. So what you find at Real Vision is Raoul's work, which is, there's nothing really better from a macro standpoint. If you're familiar with the concepts of liquidity analysis and what that means for risk assets and what drives prices, a lot of that was pioneered by Raoul. So you get that information, but you also get the stuff that I'm doing for the community as well, which is trying to build out in a very new area of analysis, essentially what I would call crypto fundamentals. What drives token prices, right? we all invest in this space. We all certainly listen to the narratives. We're all human beings, so we're guided by emotions. But actually, what anchors the value of these assets, and how do you sort of invest or navigate yourself through this very complex area in a more structured way? So that's what we're doing. Well, that's what I'm doing for Real Vision. And there is a substantial community here in Australia, like surprisingly so. There are Real Vision meetups as well, and I know that we'll be doing a lot more of DeFi Australia.
The next one's on August 29th here in Sydney, I believe.
Yes, that's right. Yep, just announced, I think, down to the rocks. So that's it. Thanks, Mark, for giving me an opportunity to speak. And if you've got any questions about Real Vision or about the research that I'm creating there, then feel free to come up to me after the event. So thank you.
I think it's rare that you get someone who is clap. Sorry, I stifled the clap. There's not many people with the title Chief Crypto Analyst. So I think it's amazing.
Well, other than other research houses that tend to use that nomenclature as well.
But
it's a little bit wanky, let's face it. But, the whole space is becoming a little bit TradFi-esque.
Exactly. The rigor is there. So thank you so much, Jamie. All right, let's get to the next slides as we round out. We're on Luma. So that's where you would have found it. And our other events are up there. So that event that I mentioned before with the international dignitaries is there. Let's go to the next one, please. Come on up stage, Chris, who usually hides behind the scenes, but you get to see his pretty face right now. Chris, come up on stage. Come on down. The price is right. The token price is right. Thank you. There's no music for us to play. Yeah, you go that side. You know how this works. Ah.
So I can't switch the camera up here.
Oh.
So I'll have to stand next to
you
this
can.
beautiful man.
All right.
I'll make this really quick. So running a webinar series over the next couple of months, starting with harnessing our tools for product teams, looking at ideas, explanations, and application of AI into your work life, your workflows, and even your personal life. That's how it works. So there's a little thing there for you to sign up with. We've got quite a few people joining already. So just looking for more people want to participate, get involved. Come check us out. First one's on the 15th of August.
As I mentioned before, Chris is the guy that I'm doing that Digital Nexus podcast with, which is up to what episode now?
Episode 6.
We've
already done it for over a month.
We'll be talking about this event tomorrow. So we film it just down in one of the other rooms here. And it comes out either Monday or Tuesday, depends on how big of a weekend we've had or Chris has had. But I think it's really important to, have these kinds of conversations on a more regular basis. The whole reason Oz DeFi Association started was because we were going to other meetups, and every 30 days you wait, there's another meetup and then another meetup. But we wanted to have a conversation in the middle, and then it led to us starting a Discord, or starting a WhatsApp, turned into a Discord after hundreds of people piled in. And then people actually asking us to start the event. So if you're new here, thank you so much for coming. It just continues that thesis that we had, that people are interested in this space. So even when the markets were down, we still had the same kind of size room here. I think we had, because I had to do this for City of Sydney, count the numbers. We had about 1,200 people come through over the year. So that's about 100 per event that we've done, which is bloody amazing. And it's a testament to all of you. So before we continue, can you guys give yourselves a round of applause for being here? Next slide, please. Get back to your perch, Chris. Go back to thank you. Thank you, sir. That was his rare appearance, and we'll never see him again. So I'm joking. You'll see him tomorrow. So just as I mentioned there, the special offer, because City of Sydney has sponsored us to do more AI stuff for blockchain, and also as part of doing that, educate the world on AI. And I think I can definitely say this, that our view, Arturo, if you didn't get the picture, I work with him, unfortunately. It does mean that we have, because we've come from blockchain and data science and all that kind of background first, but because we made this pit stop at blockchain, it's meant that we look at the world of AI through a different lens. We look at it through how secure is it? How can we, right now, people complain about AI as being a black box. How did you get the answer? We can't trust the compliance and risk departments can't trust it because of that. But certainly there's going to be the black box component, but if you can showcase the steps in the decision-making for the robot or you, the humans, that got you to this output and this answer, we're going to have a far more trustworthy future where AI workloads are part of that. So blockchain, guys, is far more important than you think. I know people have gone like, oh, we've gone from blockchain to AI in terms of the overall world. There is a really important reason. I think if we went the other way, we might not have things as secure as they could be. Because imagine if we had AI first and all of those crappy tokens and, you know, people shilling and scamming each other, how much worse that would have been if AI came first. So important to remember there. Free 1 month off. Talk to me after class for that. Next slide. Okay, so the most important part about all of these events is not the talks. Those are recorded. You can watch those later. It's the networking. I know people already started. There's a few more drinks there. There's pizzas, there's garlic breads. Make sure if you are leaving here that you're left with a connection. You've met someone new. You've learned something new. If you haven't, come talk to me. I'll be back here with Chris packing up. But for now, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, Sydney.